Alright, what's up guys? As promised, I'm going to do a video on tips and tricks how to pass the ACE personal trainer exam. So let's get right into it. The book I have is the 5th edition of the manual. I actually took a class last semester at school that basically gets you ready for it. Also sets you up for the job at school. So that class was from around January to May. So I spent, obviously we went over the book in the class, but I had other classes so I didn't really go in depth. I spent the whole summer from May to August and read every single page. Went through every single page, read it diligently, wrote down every single thing that I thought was important. I wrote down this composition notebook here. Just, pen, paper, just wrote it down, wrote notes, drew pictures, whatever helped me. I read through it carefully. I didn't just look at the bolds and the charts. I read almost every single word. Honestly, this is another book they offer, The Essentials of Exercise Science. I do not think it's necessary. Honestly, it's a lot of information that'll probably just freak you out because it's just so much about anatomy. I mean, obviously that stuff's important, but there's a lot of stuff in here that if you spent your time reading it, it'd probably be a waste. And, there's a lot of different numbers in here. You don't need to memorize all the bones in the body, all the muscles in the body. So do not waste your time, honestly, or your money with this book. I would not recommend it. I would recommend getting this book, 5th edition. 4th edition might do you well, but I would just go with the 5th edition and just read it. Don't, whichever way you like to learn best. I wouldn't recommend skimming it once and then reading it again. I would just recommend taking the time, reading it one time thoroughly. It's about 720 pages or so. Just read it. Just read it a chapter a day, whatever you want to do. There's 18 chapters. Just read it carefully. That is my #1 tip. Read it, and however you learn best, write down notes, write down in the book, highlight, get a composition notebook like I did, just write it down, whichever way you learn best, but go through this book carefully. But I will go over some of the things that when I was studying and taking the test, I saw pop up time and time again. I'm not going to try to make this just listing things. I'm going to try to make it short and sweet. First thing is chapter 1 of the book, Scope of Practice of a Personal Trainer. Know that you're not allowed, it's out of your scope. Well, first off, a scope of practice is what you're legally and ethically allowed to do as a personal trainer, right? So you have personal trainers, physicians, registered dietitians, physical therapists, and you're a personal trainer. So you're not a physician, you're not a registered dietitian or a physical therapist unless you are certified as those things. You are a personal trainer. So you're not to give any information about supplements, alternative therapy as opposed to a physical therapist, and nutrition plans. There's a lot of questions on that on the test about, the client will ask you about, for example, taking creatine. The answer is always refer them to a registered dietitian or the physician. You're not allowed to give any, like, oh yeah, I recommend taking this amount or this much for performance. Just refer them to someone else who knows. Same with nutrition plans. There's a few questions about, clients asking, well, if you could write me a nutrition plan to follow. No, registered dietitian. You are allowed to give them advice about, like, lower fat choice foods, for example, but not like a full-fledged meal plan. Another one is the client-trainer relationship. So the acronym is RIPA. It's Report, Investigation, Planning, and Action. So just know, maybe which stage that you're in as far as asking questions, interviewing, planning, writing programs, yada yada. A SMART goal is an acronym. Know that pops up a lot. Just know what they mean and know how to implement that if a client asks you for advice on that. Stages of learning, this is a big one. Let me go to it and just make sure I tell you right. That comes up quite often. See, write it down. So stages of learning: cognitive, associative, and autonomous. And basically just cognitive is they're new to it. They need careful demonstration. Next one is they begin to master the basics and they are ready for specific feedback. And then the last one is they're performing it naturally. It's almost second nature. So I'm not going to try to go into everything. I just want to give you a list of things. Sorry, went off on a tangent. The trans-theoretical model of behavior change, the TTM, is what ACE likes to phrase it. Know that it's pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and maintenance. Know it and know what they mean and look through the examples in the book. That pops up a lot too. What do we got next? The ACE IFT model, which is the integrated fitness training model, which basically has different stages of both functional movement training and cardiorespiratory training. There's 4 phases. So depending on what your client, it's basically like the readiness of your client and how you're going to program them. You know, do they need to work on their posture and their balance? Do they need to work on, you know, just everyday movements? Can they get into weights yet, or they need like more advanced performance training? That type of thing. Know that. Different planes of motion: frontal, sagittal, and transverse plane. Remember that. There's a lot of pictures in the book. Definitely look at the pictures. Let's see. What's next? Okay. Chapter 7. Chapter 7. Read Chapter 7 as many times as you need to until you know it like the back of your hand. I'm telling you guys. Chapter 7. Let's see what the name of the chapter is. I know what it's about because it's very important. Functional assessments: posture, movement, core, balance, and flexibility. This talks about postural imbalances, muscle imbalances, tight and lengthened muscles, kyphosis, lordosis, you know, tight hip flexors, hip extensors, all that. This pops up a lot, guys. Know this like the back of your hand. Read it. It can be very overwhelming at times, but, and this is for all the book, use other resources. This book is a great resource, but it's not your only resource. I am a visual learner, so I would go on YouTube and look at videos. Kyphosis, lordosis, explanation, tight muscles, blah, blah, blah. I learned a lot from Google and from YouTube. I would be studying and say, what does this mean? I don't like this definition, or it doesn't fit me well. I would Google it, look it up on YouTube, watch a video, see it, see how different people explain it. Guys, it's super important. Chapter 7 pops up a lot. Let me see what I got written down. Okay. Chapter 7, like I said, super important. Cannot stress that enough. Chapter 7, know Chapter 7 in your sleep. But some few things you want to take from it: the difference between a tight muscle and a lengthened muscle. Just know that a tight muscle is going to be an overworked muscle. It's going to be a dominant muscle, right? So a very common example is, you know, a client is performing a seated row, and you know his arms like elevate like this, right? So it's going to be like a tight upper trapezius muscle pulling it upwards. Just know that tight is dominant and strong, and lengthened is going to be a weak muscle, right? So tight is strong, needs to be stretched, and lengthened is weak, it needs strengthening. Which leads me into the next point: flexion versus extension, mainly in the hip. Just know that flexion is picking up the hip. I don't know if you can see this, but flexion is picking up the hip. So hip flexors, extension is kicking back the hip, right? So glutes, you know, things of that nature. In general, flexion is decrease of a joint, extension is increase of a joint, of the angle of a joint. Hip and shoulder, flexion, extension, very common, but mainly hip. So like I said, know that like the back of your hand. Chapter 7 pops up a lot. It's very huge on the test. Another thing too that I want to get into, it kind of goes with the whole, while we're talking about hips, is hip adduction and abduction. One of the things I learned in the class, and the easy way to remember it, is adduction is, you think of the root word add, it's towards the midline of the body, like you're adding to it, and abduction is away from the midline of the body, so think of like abduct, like take away, and it's all to the midline of the body. So this is my hips, adduction, excuse me, adduction, right? Another thing it really goes into is, you know, during a test, during what should we call it, the hurdle test, where you're standing on one leg, if the hips, it'll talk about if the hips adduct, meaning they fall inwards, or maybe during a squat your knees fall inwards and they adduct inwards. Like I said, tight muscles will pull towards that, and so it'll say like, you know, how do you fix an over-down hip adduction, right? That's weak hip extensors or glutes. So a lot of that, like I said, watch videos, YouTube videos, be your friend if you're a visual learner like me. There's a lot of pictures in the book, but just know hip extension, hip flexion, flexion extension in general, tight versus lengthened, like the back of your hand. Another common one is a lordosis, which is an excessive anterior curvature in the lower back. Just know that more curved in the front means tight hip flexors, tight erector spine. Decreased anterior curve is tight hamstrings, tight abs. That's all in the book, but just know that it talks about that a lot, tight hips and such. Okay, moving on. Again, chapter 7, super important. Do not skim over it. Read it as many times as you need to. Look online, super important. Moving on, aerobic versus anaerobic exercises. Just know aerobic with oxygen, anaerobic without oxygen. I had to do a little research on that too, just to clarify. Again, use Google. Beta blockers, that's just a common one. Just know they lower the blood pressure, resting and exercise. We talked about hip add and abduction. Type 1 and 2 muscle fibers, know that. Slow twitch, fast twitch. Concentric and eccentric. The mind-body chapter, I think it's chapter 13. Not too important. Special populations, just know they don't ask a lot about specific special populations, but just battery on the camera died. But what I was saying was special populations, just extended warm-up and cool-down period. Chapter 18 is the last chapter, more like the business side of it. Know what a waiver is and the different types of negligence, like comparative and contributory and gross. Just know who's responsible, you know, what the causes are and that type of thing. That's it for specifics I have. Again, 2 important points. This, just take it everywhere with you, study it, read it, know it. Same with chapter 7. Chapter 7 is huge. Like I said, just read whatever works best for you. I wouldn't recommend wasting your time reading it once, skimming over it. I would just read it carefully. Read every single word. Don't just pay attention to the bold words. If I got to a word I didn't know what it was, I would immediately just flip to the back. I got a highlighter back here, and just go and look in the glossary and write down the definition. Maybe go to the index and find a page where the pictures were, but just know this book, know it. There are some things that as you go on, it's very repetitive. Some of it's helpful, some of it's not. It talks a lot about stuff that you don't need to know. Different words, like different sciencey words for different pains, or you know, something that's wrong. But honestly, you'll find out as you go. You'll find out as you go along what is repetitive, what's needed, what's not. But oh my gosh, read this over. Just read it, know it. Another tip. Again, chapter 7 is huge. Don't forget chapter 7. I personally didn't get any of like the study companions, flashcards, a lot of things that ACE sells as like study tools. I didn't get it myself. The only thing I got were the 2 practice tests. I did get one for free just because of the class I was taking. I did buy the other one. They're $30 a piece. I think you can get both of them for like 45 bucks if you buy them together. Do that. Oh my gosh, do it, because it's better than having to pay $200 to retake the test. Spend 50, 60 bucks on 2 practice tests, and they help a lot. It gives you a good idea of what's going to be on the test, how the questions are worded. There are other resources besides the test that ACE provides. I think on like test.com. If you just Google ACE personal trainer practice test, there will be a ton of questions, different resources, other videos just like this. Watch as many of them as you can. But the test that ACE puts out, the 2 practice tests, are great resources. They help me a lot, honestly. There's a lot of things I was like, oh yeah, I know that. And I'd go look up in the book, or if I didn't know, you know, I'd Google it. It's better to get it wrong on the practice test than on the actual test, because after the practice test, it tells you what you got wrong, why it's wrong, what page of the book, it references the book, what page. Like I said, obviously you can use Google if you don't understand it, but it's better to get it wrong on the practice test than the real test. I would take those tests over and over until I got like literally hundreds on them. And granted, I did kind of memorize the answers, but it did help because it's just repetition. It was seeing how the questions were worded, what kind of questions they were asking. So yeah, definitely get the 2 practice tests. Will help you a ton. But like I said, cannot stress the importance enough of just reading this. Read it. It's 700 pages. Just do it. You're wasting your time if you're just gonna skim it and just look at the bold words. Because trust me, I got literally about 80% of the information from the test from like the non-bold or quote-unquote important sections. Just read it. Read it. In chapter 7, read that even harder. Trust me. Like I said, that is just I would say 3 big tips. Read the book thoroughly, read chapter 7 even more thoroughly, and you have other resources online. If you're a visual learner like me, YouTube videos, there's tons of them out there, especially on chapter 7. The posture stuff, it can be hard to grasp if you're new to it. I have no background in anatomy. You know, I'm not a sciencey, exercise science student here at school. So it was hard for me to grasp that. So YouTube videos helped me a ton. Google helped me a ton. Another thing too, if you're a gym rat like I am, read the machines on the gym, because it'll tell you the motion used, like plantar flexion, shoulder extension, shoulder flexion. You know, towards the end when I was starting to take the test, it all made sense. I was like, hey, that makes sense, and it gives you something to visualize. So I'm trying to keep this quick, brief. Again, 3 tips: read the book thoroughly, chapter 7 even more thoroughly, and what I say, outside resources. It will help you a lot, whatever kind of learner you are. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Like I said, I just want to make this to help you guys out. If you have any questions specifically, message me, you can DM me on Instagram, put the @ name right here. I'm more active on there, posting 2 to 3 times a day. This video helped you out, thumbs up it, share it with a friend who's preparing for the test, and like I said, message me with any questions, but read the book. Read the book. I cannot stress it enough. That is my tip and video for tips for the ACE exam. So study hard and do well in the exam. Pass it. I believe in you guys. Go get it. Till next time, see you later. Peace.